Thank you very much. So yes, as David mentioned, this project has just begun. We started in January. So we thought it was an interesting one to share with you, and most of all, I think, to get some ideas from you about where we may go forward from here in the project. And there's an opportunity to get involved in it, which I'll tell you about more later on. So WhoLo Dance, the longer title is Whole Body Interaction Learning for Dance Education. There are 4 of us actually on the project here at Coventry. Besides myself and Rosa, there's also Karen Wood and Ruth Gibson. So there's 4 of us involved in the project. It started in January. It runs for 3 years. It's funded by the European Commission under the Research and Innovation Action ICT 2015 of the Horizon 2020 programme, which may or may not mean much to you, and if it doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry. But it does mean it's one of those projects that's funded through the Commission and necessarily brings together a large number of partners across the member states. And the overall aim is to design and develop whole body interaction tools to support dance learning, and that learning might be taking place within a university context or within a conservatoire context, or indeed out into the professional context as well. So one of the questions for us, well, there are many questions for us, but is that transition as well. So how does this tool, or the series of tools and the work that we're doing on the project might be relevant not only within a training context, but also within an ongoing continual professional development context. So the aim of the project is to create new technologies for capturing and analysing dance movement to facilitate whole body interaction learning experiences for a wide, well, not so much a wide range, a variety of different dance genres, which we'll mention in a moment. So we're exploring smart learning environments, this idea of providing dance students with adaptive and personalised learning and assessment through multi-modal, multi-sensory interaction technologies and advanced immersive real-time training interfaces. That's a long sentence. So in simple terms, we're working with motion capture technology, and we're also working with a partner, Motec, in the Netherlands, their technology is the one, if I'm honest, is the one that I'm finding, and I think we're finding potentially the most interesting, which is around building holograms. And the questions that emerge about how, if you create a hologram projection of the dancer, what happens in terms of that corporeal embodied experience of dancing with another of oneself in that different way. So it's a different kind of technology. Now, I know very little about the science behind holograms, but I understand at the moment that the science that exists is potentially not safe to use because of the ionisation of the air that's used for holograms. So one of the sort of a parallel sort of part of this process is how do we develop safe technologies as well? Obviously ones that aren't going to damage the health of the dancer, which would be a really bad outcome. So there are 10 partners on the project spread across Europe. It's led by an Italian partner, Linkes, that's an innovation research SME company. We have partners in Greece, the University of Athens, Motec that I mentioned in the Netherlands. We've got the Polytechnic of Milan in Italy, Peach Note, which is a technology company from Germany, the University of Genova in Italy, Stokos in Spain, which is a company, a professional dance company, K-Dance, another company in France, ourselves, and then we've got the Lyceum Club of Athens folk Greek dance group, which is fantastic. So we bring a very different range of dance partners into it, ranging from us in a university to professional contemporary and ballet companies. The work we're doing here is bringing in contemporary work, skin releasing technique work, as well as Rosa's work in flamenco, which we'll be hearing a bit more in a moment about, and then also the Greek folk dance. So it's quite a range of different dance genres, which is giving us a lot to think about. So what have we done so far? Well, we had our kick-off meeting in Rome, which was lovely. It's always a good tip if you're doing European projects, make sure you choose very nice venues for meetings. So we started in Rome. And the first thing we did this in 2 days, which seems extraordinary. And I think if we thought too long about it, we'd have never got to the point of being able to succeed in doing this. And I say succeed. It's still very much a work in process, of course. What we were trying to do was agree on a set of movement principles that underpin the learning, teaching, and experiencing of all dance genres. Now, if you start to think about that, it's impossible. But if you give yourself 2 days to do it, somehow you do it. And you come up by the end going, well, that's kind of okay, we'll work with that. And coming up also with a set of learning principles. It's the sort of thing that takes some people a lifetime of work, and we tried to do it in 2 days. And we were doing it thinking across these different genres as well, trying to think about following the principles to acquire kinetic material, which will provide a satisfying proof of concept for learning scenarios and as basis for capture. So, of course, we have our technology providers who have a very different set of needs in terms of what is it that can be motion captured, what are the protocols that they need to develop, and so on. So this interesting conversation that happens when of course, we can think of a million reasons why a particular principle needs to be expanded and continuously expanded. But if you talk to somebody who's working with machine reading technologies, then it's a very different set of challenges. And what we've also done is, and this is where we need some of your help maybe, is to bring in other dance experts to look at the questionnaire, the questions that we're asking ourselves. And anybody who's interested, please, in having a look at this questionnaire and filling it in from your own experience, it would be fantastic, because we can then start to amass more information and get more intelligence around what we're doing. Okay, now this is the moment where you'll go, oh, no. You haven't thought about that, and that doesn't work. So these are the movement principles that we came up with. Symmetry, which of course involves asymmetry and isometry as well. Directionality, balance, alignment, posture, stability, weight bearing, gesture, or the difference between weight bearing and gesture. Gross versus fine rhetorics, isolation, articulation, coordination, motion through space, rhythm, phrasing, and stillness. Discuss. Yeah, you've got to start somewhere. Exactly, thank you, Sarah. So it's that whole thing that, you go round and round and round and round and round, and in the end you do need to have some kind of classification system, and it's never going to be perfect. But I'm very happy to hear people say, have you? Yeah. And then we moved on to our learning principles, and these will feel a bit more familiar, I suppose. And again, it's about trying to find some way of defining or categorizing, which is inherently rather if not impossible task to do. So we came up, first of all, with mimesis, the idea of imitation copying, the teacher is teaching, blah, blah, blah. Generative, that the student is giving an exercise or a phrase or a sequence as a starting point. Reflexive, so the movement task or image is something which is more improvisational. And then a traditional method, which is kind of interesting, I think came from our ballet colleagues, where the teacher makes all the decisions and the learner follows those decisions. Now, of course, this represents a wide spectrum, and when we were starting to think about our own practice in relation to these principles, and when we were filling in our questionnaires about this and thinking, well, everything seems to sort of blur across, and I was much more in the kind of reflexive territory, and others were much more in the sort of mimesis and so on. So, of course, each genre moves across these principles, and indeed they may not be the perfect principles anyway. So that's where we've got to in terms of trying to have a place to start in order for us to then work in an efficient and productive and possible way with our technology partners. And now Rose is going to say something about how she's tackling these questions from through the lens of flamenco.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm really excited that flamenco is included in this project, because many times flamenco is not seen as a genre that is either studied at within higher education or thought of in this way of being a teaching tool. So that's really exciting for me as a teacher and as an artist. flamenco, as in any genre, has its foundation. There's the song, the dance, and the guitar playing. We won't get into that, but it is worth mentioning that there's a very specific structure and hierarchy within flamenco that you have to understand before you can even start dancing. The best way to describe flamenco is it's a structured improvisation that's from the music and the singing to the dancing. So it's you have three basic elements within the dancing. You have the footwork, the body, which means the arms, the head, the look, or the eyes, and then compás, which is rhythm. So these are the three basic components of flamenco. The way I teach flamenco is often barefoot, but traditionally it's done with high heels that have nails and makes a lot of sound. And this was a great question. Sarah and I had to have a conversation that within the project, are we thinking about using shoes or going barefoot? Because this changes the center of gravity, also your balance, and it changes all of the movement principles that we're thinking about. So that's a very clear decision that, again, we're still having many conversations with. And with the technology experts, they were, well, it'd be great to have both. And I don't think they realize what that means. So again, they're two different worlds kind of coming together and having these conversations. A main part of flamenco is this idea of being grounded. And I wanted to reference something that most of this audience might know, which are thinking about the Bartinha fundamentals and what that might mean. So I'll just let you read that quote, and we won't discuss it too much because I know that we're short on time. So if I can draw your attention to the picture at my far left, you see there are these arrows. So you have the grounded and the arrows going in two directions. If we think about flamenco as being in between kind of the ballet world and then we have contemporary, which can be a bit improvisational. I mean, contemporary is, again, a very broad term here. So ballet is very codified. We have, you know what a plie is. A plie will always be a plie. And contemporary and improv, it can be any number of things. Your relation to the floor, there may not be an up and down. So flamenco sits right in between that within the genres that we're looking at in the project. And why is this important? Because this changes the way, the learning principles then we're working with. There's a combination of having a bit of the reflexive learning principle as well as the traditional. So I can start a class, and Alina is now joining my class here on Wednesdays. So she, her ballet training has come in, and I'll say arms, and her arms are right there, and it's perfect. Where someone who's coming has maybe a bit more contemporary background and not used to this traditional, I have to access and use different language. So flamenco is a great, within this project, a wonderful tool to really help us navigate many of these learning principles. And I like these two images because it shows that, when I say neutral in my class, I mean go to this very classical position. So yes, I think I will send that back to you.
Thank you, Isaac. So that's a bit of a snapshot, a bit of a quick summary of where we are. What we're doing next is in March. Oh, we're in March. The first captures are taking place in Amsterdam. These will be some of the contemporary dancers from France. And what became very interesting is that when we first completed our sort of descriptions of how we might be teaching, a little bit like Rosa was explaining, how you might approach teaching a sequence, an exercise or a phrase that might be typical, whatever that means, within one's practice, and then passing that on and discussing that with our technology partners. Of course, for many of them, that was quite a difficult language for them to work out how would that translate into the potential for captures. So we then moved into doing some videoing, which is actually a little bit easier. So you video the material. So they've got a whole series of short video extracts. And they're very straightforward. There's somebody, who's sort of saying, well, now I'm going to do and you sort of feel it's a little reductive, but it's a way in. It's a way to start this process, that we can start to build this repository of captures, and then start to think about how that can be used to develop ways in which we can support new ways of thinking about teaching and learning in that context. I'm not really sure where we're going to get to. It's a long process. We're right at the beginning of 3 years.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise that was going to happen.
Well, it was very good timing, David, because I was just going to say,
I wasn't supposed to.
as I mentioned earlier on, that we've got these questionnaires that we'd love other people to fill in from your perspective, and be really honest. No, be really honest about it. If things aren't working and that you think, this is not a helpful principle, let us know, please. And we'll take it back into the project and see what we can do from there on. So let me know. I'm there. Rosa's there. Drop us an email and we'll send you the questionnaire. It'll only take you 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Brilliant. Please, there are lots of comments. Yeah, I'm afraid it's a hard copy questionnaire as well. I mean, which you can do, obviously, but it's not a. Yeah, well, you could do it in pencil, but you could do it on. Yeah. It's not a. It's not one of those. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah, and of course.